My name is Carrie Dorsky. I am the operations coordinator at the NWTC Artisan and Business Center. This is our monthly speaker series called An Artist's Journey. We do this from September to May of each year, and that means there's 9 months, and I usually split them up. So I usually chat with 3 artists, 3 community organizations, and then I try to cover 3 business topics. Today's topic was a request last year to talk about art markets and participating in markets in general and bringing your artwork to the public and what that looks like. And so um, when I started kind of thinking about this topic, I was like, who do I know that does markets, that does them well, somebody that I would like to chat with, who I think does a great job of representing artists at markets. And I thought of Kim Wallander. So Kim, I'm going to let you introduce yourself first. I don't want to miss anything. So why don't you tell us who you are and maybe how long you've been doing markets?
Okay, like Carrie said, my name is Kim Wallander. I do a variety of different crafts. I started doing markets 20 years ago, and I know that fact because the Broadway market, the first year that it was starting, I was teaching some beadwork at one of the businesses downtown, and they were able to have a spot, I don't know what you want to call it, a place. And several of the people who were teaching at that time at the business split up the market weeks. So that is how I got started.
That's awesome. So for anybody joining us live tonight, please feel free to unmute yourselves, jump in, or drop anything in the chat. Some of you know who have joined me for this before. I don't always write a big long list. I usually have a few bullet points like to guide the conversation. I don't like it to feel too rehearsed, but there's a lot of information when it comes to markets. So I made a nice big long list, and I have told Kim we may not get to all these topics, or if Kim has thing more to talk about than what I want to talk about, or if you, the audience, want your specific questions answered, that's more important. So please make sure you're getting out of this what you would like. So drop them in the chat or just unmute yourself and jump in. We'll keep this really casual. So we covered how long you've been doing markets. That was my first question. But I think you should tell our viewers what kind of things you make and sell and what kinds of things you've made and sold throughout the years.
Okay, initially when I started markets, it was jewelry because it was through the bead store that was downtown. That's no longer operational. Over the years, I've switched the kind of jewelry I make. I find a farm market, a lot of the smaller items go, earrings go, simple bracelets, rings. When I do shows that are more art-based, then I will do 3D beaded items. I'll do bigger jewelry, those type of things, just because of, again, you got to figure out who is your audience and what's going to sell. So in addition to doing the jewelry, I do 3D beaded stars, ornaments. I make a variety of pet toys. Grow fresh catnip in the yard, dry that, and turn that into catnip toys. So, you know, if Gertie needs anything, I'm the source for her.
I love that. Actually, one of our office assistants, Alicia, brought me a cat toy the other day, and it's been Gertie's favorite one, which is very cute. So.
Yep. And I also do snuffle mats and tug toys as well. So those are, I've also made rugs out of repurposed material. So some handbags, some crocheted, some stitched, some beaded, some, yeah, I said crocheted. So yeah, variety of items.
So let's circle back a little bit. You said kind of knowing your market and adjusting what you're making and selling. So how do you figure out what to sell at each market, or how do you figure out which markets to do?
Initially, it's trial and error. You got to figure out what fits for you. The Broadway market, like I said, I got to start through a business, so I kind of got the feel for it. And 20 years ago, that market is not what it is today. I mean, it was much smaller and not nearly as intense as it is now. I do like that market. There's a lot of foot traffic, a lot of sales of my smaller items. A lot of teenage girls down there, so I make these cute little daisy chain bracelets. And they come in, I bought this one last week, I got to get some more. And we laugh about my hefty pink spires at the supermarket because they're coming back for new colors and things. if people don't see what they want, I will make it. That's how I started making the tug toys and snuffle mats. People are like, hey, could you? And I'm like, let me see what happens. So I've done other markets. Am I free to say which ones I do? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
Okay. Well, it's just a different feel. When I'm on Broadway on Wednesday night, I'm in my tent and I usually have another adult helper with me because for part of the night, I can't do it myself. It's so busy. It's so intense. I've been doing the Titletown Market on Thursday nights. That one is much more chill, much more laid back, much more family oriented. It's kind of nice to do the two of them because Wednesday's really intense. Thursday, I usually bring a project and work on it while I'm there, which also brings people into my tent. They want to see what I'm doing. For many years, I did the Algoma one on Sunday mornings. Love that when I could sit and look at Lake Michigan under my tent. You could also drive right in and just work right out of the back of your vehicle. So there's pros and cons to everyone. There really is. And I just had to kind of find a balance. And the Wednesday and Thursday, I don't have to unload my car Wednesday night for the next one on Thursday, which is nice too. So that's kind of how I've picked on the markets that I do.
And people get to know where they can find you when you do them regularly like that. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Or people come and say, are you down on Broadway? I think I saw your stuff. And I'm like, yep, I'm there as well. So yeah, it's kind of nice. And people, when I get a seasonal spot on Broadway, I'm in the same spot all summer. Nice. Which is a big plus. Couple of years where I was seasonal, only had 4 weeks. They put you in a different place each time, which people come, I was looking for you. And I'm like, yeah, well, yeah, it just makes it harder.
Harder to find you, probably harder to park and unload.
Yep. All those things you figure out when you're in the same spot. It's hard when you're moving.
For sure. Do you do any only once a year kind of events?
Yes. I tend to do the high school shows.
Yep.
A couple of years ago, I did a bunch that were set up through event companies, and personally, that wasn't for me. I found the communication wasn't always real great. The venue we were at, a lot of times hit too where the lighting was so poor, we're using the flashlights on our phone to have customers see what was on the table.
Yep.
And the money goes to this company. I like doing the high school shows. The kids are there. So if you've got the football team, the dance team, the whatever, they're there, they're part of it. And the money goes to the kids. And having worked in the schools for 30 years, I'm a school-based person. So I love it when the kids can be part of it and benefit from it. So.
Yeah, there's something to be said for a community event rather than just a corporate one.
Yep. And because I do so many shows and I have so many options, I can kind of pick and choose.
For sure. Well, you know what works for you. You've clearly figured out your audience. I think that's a hard part. So I've had this conversation with a couple of groups of our residents over the past few years of how do you choose? And my advice has always been, you have to go see that show. If you're not really sure that it's a good fit for you, go shop that show. Go see what other artists are selling. Go check out their price points. Does your stuff fit? Is it the right vibe for you? Is it a community-based event or is it a big corporate one? What's the travel time? All of those things. So,
and some of them it's the fees, because the fees continue to rise like everything else in the world is rising. But yeah, if the fee is like $150, I know I have to sell a whole lot of product in a day to make it beneficial. So that.
Right. I think that's a big part of the assessment too, is looking at okay, do I make gigantic paintings and I have to sell one painting to make this weekend worth it? Or how am I going to make that booth fee? Plus, your time is worth something too. That's the other thing to consider is set up, take down, sitting there all day. All that costs something. And so you've got to be really smart about making it worth your while. One thing you said, and I know it's a question on my list somewhere, is you said At the Thursday markets, you bring a project to work on because it draws people into your booth. Can you talk a little bit about how you draw people into your booth or how you engage with customers?
Sure. At the Broadway market, it's more of a challenge because during the peak time, there are people that like just walk past because they're afraid to step out of the moving traffic because they can't get back into the traffic to keep moving. So I find a lot of times, like, oh, hey, did you need help with that? Or you want to step over here on the side to kind of guide them on what's appropriate to do, where is appropriate to stand. Depends how we're set up. Years ago, we were 10 to 10. I mean, you had 10 feet, your tent was 10 feet, so they had to be under. Last year, fortunately, I had a little room on the side so people could stand on the sides of the tables. And again, standing up, greeting them. I always do have a chair and I will sit sometimes. But I think, and recognizing faces too. Hey, you stepped by last week, or hey, you know, like I said, the girls with their frequent flyers, the ones that come back for the bracelets over and over. Yeah, when I do the Wednesday market, my sister is usually there. She usually brings the project. So that brings people in too, and she does a lot of needlework, crochet, knitting type things, and people, oh, what are you working on? And it's always good to have them know that interest and ask, and you demonstrate. So yeah, the Broadway or the Titletown market, that one, I'm there by myself. Set up and take down. My wonderful husband comes and does both of those with me, making my life a whole lot easier. But I will have a project sitting there, and if it's quiet, I've got my hands going. I'm making rings, I'm making rugs, whatever the temperature allows for. The rugs are usually early season, late season. It's not real comfortable making a rug when it's 90 out. So
yeah, a giant rug on your lap probably doesn't sound very comfortable.
Yeah. You know, and those are things too that you learn over time. It's like, oh, I got a rug to finish, I'll bring that. And all of a sudden you're sitting there and it's like, it's 90 degrees out here. What am I doing? You know, so.
For sure. I think one of the things I've noticed, because I've seen you at markets over the years, is that you do a great job of engaging with the customer and welcoming them into your space, but without too much conversation, if that makes sense. Yep. And I think that's important as an artist to recognize, like, if you're going to do markets, you have to say hi to people. You have to welcome them. You can't just ignore them when they walk into your booth. That's not going to help you make a sale. Yep. But also, you don't want to be like breathing down their neck, hovering over them while they're trying to look at your artwork too. So I think every artist needs to kind of find that balance and make sure that they know good customer service skills.
And part of that is reading the customer when they come to you as well. I mean, some are going to come and want to chat, and other ones are just like, let me do my deal and get out of here. So
exactly, that's hard, and I think you have to have the right personality for it too. So, you know, I'll be totally honest with you guys. I did one market once by myself. Actually, I should say I did one in high school, but then I did one as an adult, as a creator. And it was amazing. It was in my hometown. My mother had rallied like all my huge family and friends, and I sold out, like by the end of the day, sold out, and had taken like 10 commission orders. I was like top of the world, feeling like, oh, this was the best thing ever. And then I crashed for like 4 days and was like, I never want to see another human being again. That like total introvert in me was like, well, Carrie, maybe this is not a sustainable practice for you, because that is so draining to me as a person. It's not something that I want to be doing. It's not something I can sustainably do. So I think that's really important. Look, I told you she was going to be around here all night, and now she's just like in my business every time I start talking. I think it's, you know, we started talking about her and we summoned her out of her cat tree to come hang out. So I apologize for the cat back and forth with us tonight. Jan put a comment in the chat that says many artists do not understand they have to greet people. I think that's a huge ordeal. You know, if I walk into a booth and they don't even acknowledge my presence.
Yeah. Even a smile or a head nod or a, it doesn't, you don't have to get up and have a conversation with every person.
Exactly.
Just or, even, hey, how are you today? It's yep. Let them shop.
Yep. That's it. And then just like, hey, let me know if you have any questions or if you want to talk about anything specific, and just keep it really comfortable and don't overthink it.
Yep.
You talked a little bit about setup and takedown, and I know you have that kind of down to a science. You're very organized. I would love to start with that topic a little bit.
Hey.
You also drive a small car, right?
I drive a Toyota Prius.
Yeah.
I am able to get 2 tents, 4 tables, and all my product in the car with me.
That's incredible.
It's kind of like car Tetris. People are amazed when they watch. Beginning of the summer, it's a little bit harder. By the end of the summer, my husband and I can
yep.
Pull in on Broadway, open the back. I was next to a different vendor, and the guy kind of looks. My husband and I put everything in place, and he goes, "Whoa, that wasn't your first rodeo." Like, no, we can do this pretty well.
Yep.
But that too, you got to think my displays. Yes, I could have I do have a van I could drive, but I prefer to drive my Prius. So, yep. Okay, what do I want? Do I really need a huge big display? Not necessarily, because I like to keep things flat at the market because it blows away. That's the other thing. So it's kind of a give and take. What do I want versus what do I need? Mm-hmm. When I do a show like in a school gym, I can bring different displays because I'm not going to deal with weather.
Yep. That's such an important consideration. I have been at events, when I used to do events up in Door County, even with the weights on the tents by the lake, you'd still be like holding on for dear life, hoping things weren't going to blow away. Surprised I didn't.
Like I said, I could pull my car up, which was really nice because I would tie the tent to my car.
Smart. Yeah, weather is one.
You can have your vehicle right there, so.
For sure. At a farmer's market, you're not near your, And we did, the Artisan Center did Art Street one year and lost 2 tents over that weekend because of the rain and the wind. So that's definitely something as an artist, if you're considering markets, weather is a big consideration. I know some artists, I won't name names, but as they have grown their career, they no longer do outdoor markets because of that. They'll only do indoor markets. Yep, they just think, I'm done with that. I'm not dealing with the weather. I'm not dealing with the cold mornings, none of that.
Yep. It impacts you after a while. And, like I said, you get a couple 90, 100 degree days, weeks in the summer, and it's like I come home and I'm just like, I'm wiped.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Okay, so setup and takedown. So clearly you're very organized. Do you use like folding tables? How do you, what are your tips and tricks for being efficient in that manner?
I have found, I have a tent that I can put up by myself. It's a higher end tent, and I've probably had it close to 15 years, and it's wonderful. If you're going to do markets, and you're going to do a lot of markets, don't buy the $99 one at Cabela's or wherever you want to go. You're going to be sorry you did. So a sturdy tent, one you can push up, it opens up. I have the white plastic tables, the ones that fold.
Yep.
You have a handle, you can walk them to your car. You can, so the folding with the handle is very important as well. I do a combination of some stuff in like plastic bins that I can lift. And I also have large bags for the softer items. Those are nice. I can squash them in my car. The bins don't squash. So it's kind of like the packing thing.
Yep.
You kind of got to learn where you park. Like the Broadway market, the first couple of weeks, I show up a lot earlier because people don't know where they're going.
Yep.
You don't know where you can park, how long it's going to take you to walk back to your vehicle. There's a lot of factors. Once you get into the season, it's easier. Yeah. But if it's going to be a season, I show up at least 45 minutes early the first week, just to not be panicked, like, oh, I have to have everything set up, and where's my car?
Yeah, give yourself that time and space. Yep. To really figure it out. Yep. While you're talking, I'm thinking a little bit about inventory. So You said from like Wednesday market to Thursday market, you don't have to unpack the car, which is really nice. How,
Yes,
and you do a lot of really tiny things too.
yes,
So
I do.
how do you keep track of everything? Does everything have like an individual price on it, or do you have like price signs?
Typically I have price signs that I put on the table. If I have like my little bracelets, they're all the same price.
Yep.
If I have something fancier, more expensive, then I tag it with one of my tags.
Gotcha.
I used to tag every individual item, and sometimes like the bracelets and earrings, I can sell 75 items in a night.
Yep.
So tagging that takes a huge amount of time, and it's no fun.
Well,
Basically, it's just no fun. Bracelets, I have a long tray that I keep them in. I keep them by colors. And if people need a different size, I put them on a big safety pin so they hang so that we can see the length of them. So it's like, oh, do you have any more of these in the blue? And I can pull out, we can look what I have.
yeah. It
So
sounds to me like you've worked out all the kinks, right? You're kind of super organized. You've got it down to a science.
each year I come up with something a little bit new. Last year it was the safety pins. That was my husband's thing because I had some like stitch counters from knitting.
Yep.
And I looked and I'm like, to buy more, they were more expensive than what I wanted to spend. And my husband said, what about a big safety pin? You can just, I'm like, perfect.
Yep.
So yeah, and then, like I said, for the sizing on those, I've tried different display stuff.
Yep.
A lot of it is what stays on the table in the wind.
Yeah. I used to, when I, for those of you joining us, I used to run events up in Door County in the summer. And so, we had signs we'd have to like tape down, there's just so many things you don't realize until you really get there. So one of the things I always had was like a toolbox with all my little like miscellaneous things. Do you have something similar? Do you do something like that? What kinds of things are in your toolbox?
I always have duct tape. I always have pins if I have to pin anything to the tablecloth, like the signs. I have Scotch tape. I have trying to think what else is all in there. Always have paper and pencil, have small baggies in case somebody wants to order something. I have an order pad in there.
Okay.
I have a whole big bag of bungee cords, short, long, thick. If it's really windy, you can hang it on the top of the tent and sit in your chair and hold your tent down with a large bungee cord.
Brilliant.
Oh yeah, been there, done that. Yep. So yeah, those are, the duct tape, the bungee cords are, even if they're in my car, it's okay. I don't have to have like right in the tent, but the smaller stuff, I call it my little go bag. I've got my tape, my pens, my pencils.
Yep. I'm trying to think of what else I had in mind. I know I always had a pair of scissors.
Yep.
I kept like a Leatherman tool, like
Okay.
a blade tool. I was also hauling around a wooden boat, so sometimes there needed to be some other things to think about. I always had business cards. I think that's important too. Something that a customer can leave with, or if you have a conversation with somebody and you want to connect with them afterwards. That kind of exchange of information, which I also know can be done easily digitally now.
Right. But and I always make sure I have a Sharpie, because if somebody wants a business card, I can write on there my name, or like say they're interested in rugs, I'll write next to me, I'm the rug lady or whatever, so yeah.
For sure. I think I had things like rubber bands and like binder clips.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We definitely had bungee cords. That was a big one for me. But yeah, I think as you do markets, you kind of develop your go bag or your toolkit, and you start to realize like, hey, I don't want to be caught without these things. Or hey, last time I had to ask my neighbor to borrow that.
Oh yes, I often get asked for stuff. Hey, do you have? And it's like, yes, but you can't have it for the whole market. If you want to just quick use it.
You need a piece of duct tape? Here you go.
Yeah. And I used to always have like a notebook where I wrote stuff down. Well, now I've gone to just using a list in my phone.
Yep.
And if I think of something, I just put it in there, and then it's like I get home, okay, I need more business cards. I need bum, 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 bum. And that too helps me stay in the moment, because you might think about it at the market, and then you get to the next market and go, oh yeah, that's right, I needed to grab this or that. So I have a running list.
Smart. I recently realized, and maybe this is not news to some people, but you can text yourself. So
Oh,
I'm one of those people that like emails myself all the time. Like if I think of something for work, I roll over and like email myself. But I realized that you can text yourself and it just pops up like a regular text message. And so then like you can't ignore those notifications. So I've been doing that when I'm in meetings with people, or like even this morning I was having a conversation with a coworker and I was like, well, let me text myself so when I get home I remember to do that. So it's so much easier, like you said, than paper and pencil, because for me, when I was doing events like that, I'd write it down on the paper and then I'd throw that paper in the bag and then I wouldn't unpack that bag until the next market.
Yep.
Yep. While we were chatting, and I know I had this on the list too, how do you handle payment processing? Do you accept all forms of payment? How have you changed that over the years? What does that look like for you?
I have changed that over the year. Initially, when I started, it was cash. That was, some people even wrote checks back in the day if it was for a bigger purchase. I won't accept a check from anybody anymore. I do Venmo, Cash App, PayPal. One of the things and I'm kind of contemplating for this summer, because there's fees when you use all these different card readers and whatever. I know a lot of the vendors are starting to charge a fee if you don't use cash.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've been playing back and forth in my head. It's like, I use Square to process credit cards. So every Square transaction is, I think I'm at like 10 cents per transaction plus a percentage of the purchase.
Yep.
So I'm like, okay, do I say anything under $10, you have to pay a 50-cent charge? I have to wrap my head around it. Or is it like it's part of the business expense? Just suck it up.
Yeah, just raise your prices. Yeah, I've seen it all over the map. I have seen just straight up cash discount. You know, like price everything higher to plan for it being paid for with a credit card, and then you say, you know, whatever percentage off or $1 off or whatever it is if you pay in cash. I've seen it done all ways. I have been to events where they are totally cashless. And I walked around that market and paid everybody with Venmo. You know, scanned every single QR code and just paid for everything with my phone. And
well, when Titletown went cashless, people would come. I didn't like. I knew they were cashless, but it didn't like register. And somebody came up, "Do you take cash?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you got to pay for what's here, you know." And it was like, "Oh, that's right. Titletown is cashless." So that can be confusing there sometimes, but
for sure. Yeah, I think it's an interesting thing. Like if I go to a farmer's market, sometimes I'll take out cash, knowing that if I buy like produce and things, that's nicer, you know. There's not fees attached to it if I'm just buying some carrots and things.
Right.
But if I do want to buy something bigger, maybe I don't have that amount of cash on me. So
and that's why I started taking cards.
Yeah.
Initially, because it's like, oh, you know, $5 you probably have in your pocket, but if you want a rug for $40, you might not have the cash, and then you don't have the sale if you don't take the cards. So
for sure, I know a lot of people wrestle with that, and that's why I was kind of curious what you've been up to, because I think that it really is all over the map, and you'll see every single person doing something different at those things.
Yep. And it really, because I had a vendor next to me last summer who was like, I always say taxes included. It's a flat. I'm not going to bring change. I'm not going to be doing pennies and nickels when I'm down there. It's like if it says $5, it's $5. We're done. And I had a neighbor who charged tax and then charged the fees, and I'm like, no. For my sake, I don't want to deal with that. It's like I record what my sales are. I know where I'm at. I
take care of it on the backside when you don't have 75 customers in front of you.
Exactly.
You know, I think there's something to be said for efficiency and a smooth transaction. You know, I think that if I can walk in and tap my phone on their QR code and grab what I want and get out, that's what I want. You know, I don't want to be sitting there while somebody's writing out my like itemized receipt and then they're calculating on their calculator the tax and the fees, and I'm like, oh my gosh, can we just get out of here? I just wanted to buy that one little thing. So.
One of the things I did last summer is I made cards So if you're paying Venmo, they say, oh, can I use Venmo? I hold up the card, they can scan it.
Yep.
So I have the Venmo, I have the PayPal, I have which
Perfect.
too, because they're like, oh, I can scan this. So I've showed a lot of people how to scan things for Venmo.
For sure. I bet. Well, and I love the little like ding and it's done and you can see that it's been processed and it's like, it just, the whole process. Jan posted in here, she said, on average, people will spend 30% more if a vendor takes credit cards.
Yep.
I feel that. I'm one of those people that like, well, if I'm going to pull out my credit card, you might as well add on a couple extra bracelets or whatever.
Well, yeah.
So you talked about the QR code signs and you talked about pricing signs. What other things do you have? Do you have any other signage, anything like that you hold or stick up on things?
At Broadway, I don't have to have signage for my business. At Titletown, I do.
Okay.
I just have made a Crafts by Kim sign and binder clip it to the front of the tent. It's nothing fancy, but it's people look, oh, hey, it's you, so.
Yep. For sure. And I think there's something to be said for you as a person being at those markets regularly. People start to recognize you more than a logo or a sign.
Yep.
We talked a little bit about pricing. We talked about signs. Okay, so you've said how you kind of choose a market and you kind of trial and error and adjust what you're selling. What makes you not go back to a market? What are those kind of factors?
Traffic for one.
Yep.
If I'm going to set up and I have $40 in sales for the whole day and this consistently keeps happening, that's a lot of work. It's a lot of hauling. It's a lot of setup. And you come home and you're like, well, that was a bummer.
Right. Like that wasn't worth it.
Yeah. Some of it, if like last summer, my Broadway markets were so busy, I knew I had to back down on other shows. I wasn't able to keep up with inventory. I was, as I call it, producing 7 to 8 hours a day just to keep up with inventory for the 2 markets I did last summer.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'm like, this is supposed to be fun.
Right.
This is fun.
Yep.
So I have definitely backed off. People are saying, oh, this show's coming up. A lot of the school shows are coming out. And I said, until I know if I'm in a couple markets, I'm not going to say I'm going to do any of the other shows until I know, unless there's one I do in the fall that is a very good show, very big income. So it's that one I'll do. But
it sounds like a good problem to have, right? That you have to keep up on inventory.
Yep.
That sounds like a good problem.
Yep.
So I was making some notes here too, like, because when I used to do the ones up in Door County, sometimes the location would be a big factor for me, like parking and having to walk a whole mile. Like sometimes that was really difficult. There was a market that we did every year in Ephraim for Beer Ball, one of their June events, and they would do the arts and craft market from like 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then they would do the evening event when all the people would come was for the bonfires at sunset. We're talking June. So there's no in and out because it's a crazy busy festival and we would be there for 15 hours. And you couldn't even get volunteers to take those shifts because they'd have to park and walk over a mile away. So we decided, and I, kind of at the end of that season pitched of like, ticket sales are not great. Staff time means you're giving me 2 days off after doing a 15-hour event, right?
Yeah.
So, those kinds of factors I think people should really be considerate of too, is like, how much is this really breaking your back to do this? Is it fun, right?
Right. Yep. Yeah. Sometimes when you do some of those shows that run long like that, it's just like, that is definitely a consideration. I know some of the school shows that I'll do, if they're on a Saturday, they'll let us in Friday night to set up.
Nice.
Which is depending how far away it is. If I'm going to be driving an hour, do I want to put 2 hours in on driving on Friday night to put 2 hours in driving in on Saturday? So again, you have to.
Yep. Make those decisions. Be smart about them.
Yep.
I made a note here too, just because of my Door County experience. Do you do anything to like save money or cut expenses? Do you like pack a cooler for the day, or do you just like treat yourself? That's a thing to consider.
Oh, you can spend huge money on food at the markets.
Mm-hmm.
I bring my own. I pack snacks. I find, because you're in the tent for, well, Broadway's 5 hours.
Yep.
If I would eat market food, I like go into a food coma and I'm not interacting with the customers.
That's a good point. Yep.
It's like, okay, I just had this amazing sandwich. Now I really don't want to talk to anybody. So I bring a lot of fruit and nuts and like nibbly stuff that I can keep on the side.
Yeah.
Put it down if somebody comes. So yeah.
But that's smart too. So then you don't have a giant mouth of food when somebody tries to talk to you either.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very considerate. I found for sure that it was really important for me to have a lot of water because you're doing a ton of talking. And sometimes, like you said, it's like 100 degrees outside.
Yep.
And you're warm and you're moving around. And I think you have to make sure to take care of yourself because it is physically, there's a lot of exertion there.
Yep. And then you get to the end of the market and you got to take everything down and pack it up. So it's like, yeah, I have learned I don't eat market food if I'm working a market. It's not good for me. It's
for sure.
It's one thing if the raspberries are really good across the way,
right.
But to think I'm going to go and eat a big sandwich that would taste amazing, that doesn't work for me.
It's one of the reasons I made the notice because I figured you and I were on the same page about it. But I think people, go to these events and they just think, well, I'll go grab a hot dog or a brat or a beer. And that can be, fun. But then you're spending your money that you're trying to make.
Yep.
You might not feel great.
Well, and if you're there alone, how do you leave your tent to go and get the food?
Exactly.
That's the other thing
don't put yourself in that situation saying like, I forgot to bring snacks and now I have to go run to get something to eat because I'm starving. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's important to think about taking care of your human needs at a market. And I don't think people always think about that when they're getting into it, especially if they're brand new to it and they show up and they're like ready for the day and they're all excited. And then all of a sudden, 3 hours in, they have to go use the bathroom or they're hungry or they didn't bring any water. And
they're like, oh, yeah, And, if you have neighbors at the market that you're with every week, like the Titletown market, I'm there alone. Yeah. But I knew the neighbors on both sides. So I'm like, hey, I'm going to run to the restroom. They're like, we'll watch for you.
Yep. Make friends with your neighbors. That's a great tip.
Make friends with your neighbors. If you have the same neighbors on each side, it's great networking.
For sure. That's a great point. I didn't even put that in my notes. It's a good one. Okay. So we talked about payment processing. We talked about that. Do you do anything like super salesy to like close sales, or do you try to like sell, or do your products kind of sell themselves?
One of the things I'll have out on the table, instead of having like a ton of bracelets, like I said, I have a tray. Yeah. And if somebody's looking for blues, then I can just pull out my whole cluster of blue, so it's, did you want to see what else I had in blue, or, those type of things. Sure. And if a little girl like 3, 4, 5 comes in with a dad.
Yep. Golden.
Guaranteed sale. The dad's going to give in on something. Yeah. But again, I do little girl rings for $3.
Right.
And then, or you could do that, Yep. And I don't feel bad because even if he buys a ring and a bracelet, he's not even spending $10.
Exactly. I think that's a really good point, is that you've got a lot of variety of price points. Mm-hmm. Because you know your audience so well, because you've done this for so long.
Yep. So I make these little stretchy bracelets with an animal feed on for $2. The kids go wild for them. And they can put
take off. Right. No time to make. You can kind of crank those out.
Yep.
I think that's really smart, and something that I talk with our residents about too is like that thing where, you might have a $2,000 painting on your booth wall, but what's the likelihood you're going to sell that? Whereas like one of our residents I talked to this year, she does like greeting cards with her paintings.
Oh, yep.
Yep. And she sold enough to cover her booth fee for an entire weekend.
I was going to say the $5 for the card versus the $500 for the, yep.
Yep. And I think there's a lot to be said about that. Like, you know, you will sell those big pieces once in a while,
Mhm, mhm.
but the average market goer, myself included, I want to buy a lot of things from a lot of people.
Mhm.
Unless there's something that I'm like super in love with, right? Then I'll splurge on the big thing. But when I'm going to an event like that, I'm usually like looking for gifts or looking like, oh, I want a little thing from this person and a little thing from this person. I
Yep.
like to kind of collect a variety. And so I always tell people, like, make sure you have entry level price points.
I find a lot of out of towners at Titletown because they come and they're in the
Yep.
district and whatever, and you cannot sell any logo items.
Yep.
But green and gold,
Absolutely. Know your market, right?
with green and gold without putting a G on it.
Yep.
You know, and like the little football bracelets, family night, I can go through 100 of them because all the kids get them. They're $2. You know, and it's
Yep. You know that that's what's going to make, your booth fee and then some, and you
yep,
don't have to worry about those booth fees then if you know your audience well enough to do that.
yep. And
I
plus, if
oh,
those are at the front of the tent, at the end of the table, and not that people are going to intentionally take things, but
yep.
it happens. If
Yep.
it's a $2 bracelet, it's not a $50 necklace I have in the back.
Yeah.
So
That's
that's part of it too. You really gotta. I
yeah,
watch what I put out in front versus what is closer to me.
for sure. I think that's a really good tip for people to take away from this too, is making sure where you're putting items and being aware of those kind of negatives of doing markets. You wouldn't want a $500 painting to walk off.
Right.
This, a print of a greeting card. It's an easier pill to swallow, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. I had another thought. Oh, I was gonna say that, like, especially for people who are traveling out of town and maybe flying, I'm always looking for artists when I'm traveling. Maybe that's just like in my blood. But I went to a market once in Asheville, Tennessee. Asheville, North Carolina, one of my favorite places. And that's another thing where I try to buy a whole bunch of small stuff, right? Because if I'm flying, I'm like, oh my gosh,
Yes.
yeah, absolutely. So knowing your audience, and if you're at Titletown and people are in town for a game or in town for family night, that's good to know, right? Everybody can wear a bracelet on the plane.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the other thing I've gone with, because the bracelets are little, they're like 3 by 5 inch bags.
Yeah.
That are animal print.
Perfect.
So they're like, people are like, oh, I said, oh, I'll just put it in my purse. I said, it's going to fall to the bottom and you're going to forget it. Put it in this bag. You are going to see the animal print bag.
For sure.
And people are like, oh yeah. It's like, mm-hmm.
Yep. Do you have any other tips or trips or like around packaging or how you send things off with people?
I am like the recycling queen. So
Yep.
like my snuffle mats, tug toys,
Yep.
I accumulate, if I've got I don't know, most people have a bag of gift bags that just sit there.
Yep.
I will take those and use those to distribute. I will reuse grocery bags, plastic bags. And I always say, yep, I'm the queen of recycling. I'm not gonna.
Yep.
I don't mind buying paper bags that can be recycled, but like plastic, I will reuse, but I won't buy.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's become a much more acceptable practice over the years, that people are really conscious of that and realize that a bag can be used multiple times, and that we probably should be doing that. And you also don't sell a ton of breakables. So this advice would be, if you're selling like beautiful glass vases or ceramic mugs, there probably needs to be some more care and consideration put into
Oh, definitely.
item. We're talking about small beaded wearables that can sell, or like soft snuffle mats and pet toys, right?
And rugs, and those are not the breakables.
Right. So
this is why it's nice at an outside market, because if they blow off the table, you don't have
damage. I think, right, we kind of stumbled into our topic here too, of like, maybe your art form doesn't lend itself to markets.
Yeah, which is very true. Yeah.
That's probably a great assessment for people to make is it worth hauling all of the breakables and dealing with things blowing over that's something you have to make a decision as an artist.
Mm-hmm.
And then also considering insurance, right? If your entire tent blows over in a thunderstorm and you lose all of your breakable inventory, ugh,
Yep.
that's tough to come back from. You are going to want to be able to file an insurance claim.
Yep.
So I think your artwork, your crafts really lend themselves well to a market. They're wearable, they're small, they're easy to package, and that may not be the case for some people.
No, that's so very true. Yeah, if you're doing pottery, ceramics, I mean, that's just the weight of hauling it and oh yeah.
You think about the packing materials, and then, what if somebody picks up something in your booth and drops it? That's tough too. So markets are a kind of a big ordeal.
It is. And it's definitely not for everybody. It really is not. It's, and like you said, you did the one and you were like, I'm overwhelmed, go away, people, and
Yep.
and some nights I'm chattier than others, and some I'm just like, okay, I've got 15 minutes, just be done.
Yep.
It happens, but
For sure. Well, and for the most part, it sounds like you've made it a very efficient process because you've taken everything you've learned and made those improvements over the years, which then makes it easier on you.
Yep.
It's not as draining as probably the first couple of times you did it.
Oh, yeah, it's so trial and error when you start, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I need tablecloths. Oh, I need this. And it's like you get there and go, oh, oops,
Yep.
that's why that running list of what you need and
For sure.
important to.
I also think that when people attend markets, we don't realize how much work the people have put in to be there that day. And from the outside, it looks like smooth sailing, or it looks really professional and easy. And then you go to try to do one and you're like, holy cow, how does somebody do this? How do they remember to do all of that? How do they make it look so easy?
Mhm.
So it's good to do that pre-work and think it through.
Yeah.
Carly put in a question here. I'm going to read it out loud. It says, what is the best way to find market opportunities? Is there some sort of hub? And what are your top questions when you inquire with the host or venue contact about market opportunities? I have a couple thoughts. Do you have any thoughts?
I was going to say, I kind of do word of mouth, or I check out the markets. I don't know if there's like a main hub that you can go to look them up.
There are national ones.
Okay.
I don't know them off the top of my head. I know that Art Fest Green Bay just, had put theirs out on a couple of the national ones. Those are a little bit more complicated. They're a little trickier. The application process is a little more intense. There's a lot of like rules and regulations for those. I think if I were giving advice to somebody who's just starting to look for markets, I would say, what are your favorite ones to attend? And then I would, and maybe this is just because I know a lot of people and I'm kind of living in this world, but I would ask people. I would grab you and be like, do you like doing this one? Does this one work for you? Or somebody
My thought is, can I come and sit with you? Can I help you do a market for a week?
I love
that. I had a friend who recently retired, and I'm like, come on down, check this out, whatever. And she was like, she had no clue what was all involved. And she's like, wow, and then da 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 da. And it's like, so experiencing it with somebody who's there, that is an awesome way to.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I think artists are always willing to have helpers. Carly just said, Kim, can I be your helper sometime?
Most definitely. Carrie's got my contact information. You know how to find me.
I will happily set that up. I love that advice. I think that's really solid, because how else do you kind of experience it and kind of dip your toes in, right? To get a taste for it. And
when the market starts at 3:00, how much time do you need to set up? Like Broadway, you can't arrive before 1:00.
Right.
So the timing of it, am I going to be able to get in and out of the street? Where am I going to park? Like I said, the Broadway one, the first week, I always go much earlier because you don't know the neighbors. It's
Yep, shutting down streets. Yeah. I think about, so we started putting on, the Artisan Center started putting on markets on the NWTC main campus. So anybody affiliated with us, if you're watching Artist Journey right now, if you take a class, you're welcome to come do these markets. The application right now is actually live on our website. I try to make them really easy. So the first year I did it, I picked one room because I thought, oh, that's an easy in and out all on the same level. And then as we did it that morning with those 4 or 5 artists, I was like, oh, this is not easy. The main campus is kind of like a maze. So now we've got it really streamlined. We're in the same room every single time. You can pull up right to the doors to unload. There is, you have to go down one elevator. But I figure that is a lot easier than trying to snake through all of those hallways with those carts. And that's the part that I, like, as a venue host, I try to make it really, really easy for the artists, and then try to make it as reliable as possible, right? So I'm always in the same place, always the same time of year. If
and
I
you're on the communication,
Yeah.
like it's like there are some places you sign up and you don't hear from them, and it's like all of a sudden 2 weeks before, oh, you're in.
Yeah.
Well, that would have been nice to know,
Hey. Well, and like, who do you call the day of? Those kinds of things are really important. Mm-hmm. So really, to answer that part of your question, I would ask, what does day of communication look like? I think that's the one. Do you have a point of contact if something goes wrong or you need something? Yep. I would also ask about event traffic. If they've been doing this a long time, they know how many people are attending their events.
Yep.
I'm working with Downtown Green Bay to help put on Art Fest Green Bay this year. And this is their first year, but a lot of them, because they do big events downtown, because they have history doing other street festivals, they're already saying they anticipate 30 to 40,000 people in foot traffic. And if they can make estimates like that, that says something to me.
Yeah.
That means they're doing their research, or they have experience, and they can speak to what their event is going to look like. Mm-hmm. And I think as an artist, if I was considering an event, that's the kind of thing I would want to know.
Yeah.
I know event hosts can't control the weather, right?
Well, yeah.
That's like the one thing as a former event coordinator that, like, oh, the control freak in me is like, can I just plan for a good weather weekend? No, you can't. But a good event coordinator can have plans in place and communication in place. And they can say, this is so-and-so is available for either bathroom breaks or, whatever. If you need something, you at least know you're not out there alone.
Yes. Yeah, which is frustrating. If I've run into that with markets I've done where it's like the first week or so, and we'll help, and then also you don't see anybody for a month, and it's like, hello, question, who, and email and find out 2 days later.
Yeah, not helpful, right?
No, not helpful. So yeah,
I think the other thing I would ask if I was considering a market is I would ask about parking and setup and takedown. I think I would also ask about parking for customers, because if customers are going to have to park really far away or do some kind of a trolley system, they're not going to buy big things.
Right.
So that's something I would want to know. Like, if I only sell gigantic paintings and I know that somebody's not going to get to park right around the corner from me, maybe that's the right market.
Right.
Or maybe I want to make sure I'm only selling small, easy to carry things. So I think just being really aware of your customers' needs and doing that kind of research is probably an important part of this.
Another thing that I'm thinking of is you have to decide too if you want to take custom orders while you're there.
Oh, that's a great point, because you do that, right?
I will do that, and I've gotten smarter over the years. They pay for it now before I make it.
Smart. Love that. And not even a deposit, you ask for the whole thing up front?
Well, a lot of times it's a $5 bracelet.
Yep.
They just want it in a certain length or color.
Yep.
And then if they don't come back, I always tell them I will hold it for 3 weeks.
Yep.
You don't come back after that, it goes out of my inventory. But
smart.
Yeah, no, I used to make the stuff and then hold the stuff, and then they wouldn't come for the stuff, and then it would sit there, and I'm like, no. So now I'm like, yeah,
Yeah, or I can imagine they show up like 2 months later at the end of the season.
Yeah, didn't you have that?
No, nope, I don't.
I've seen 100,000 people since you were here last time. I really don't have that.
We are coming up on 5 minutes already. Holy cow, that went fast. So anybody out there with us, if you want to unmute and ask any questions or continue to put them in the chat, please do so. There's one last thing that I want to circle back to as I'm kind of looking at my notes. And you mentioned make sure not to cut corners when you pick out a tent. Is there anything else you don't cut corners on, or anything else that you're like, buy the best, or don't skimp on that?
Well, and like the tent, and I have the sides. I can put up my sides if it's going to rain. They zip.
Sure.
I can be like in my own little cocoon if I need to be. And again, the markets are rain or shine, so you got to be there. Unless it's severe weather, you're there. So you got to prep for that. That's probably, like your stand, and like the tables too. Don't buy a cheap, flimsy, floppy table that the legs are going to go on. Tablecloths, people tend to set drinks and food and stuff on them.
Yeah.
So like when I do 2 nights back to back, either I got to remember to throw those tablecloths in the laundry when I get home on Wednesday before I leave Thursday, or I now have acquired extras so that if they are spoiled, I have other ones. So some of those things too. And you want something that's durable, wash and wear. I have some that are like restaurant ones that deflect the water, so if somebody spills stuff, it kind of rolls off.
Smart. Yeah, tablecloths make your booth look a lot more professional.
Yeah, I've gone to the stretchy ones that hook under the legs. That way they don't fly up and knock product off the table.
Those are great.
And they're readily available. They're easy to get. So
that's a great tip.
Yeah, I think your core things, your tables, your tent.
Yeah.
Bring a decent, comfortable chair so you're not.
Yep.
Because, sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes you sit for an hour. It's.
Sure. Yep. I've seen a couple of booths where they put their tables up on the risers because they know they're like standing and leaning on their booths or on their tables. And I think that's pretty smart too. I know some people who are really doing like, they want to be standing and leaning, and when you're standing and leaning at a tight table, that's really hard on your back. So, again, kind of taking care of yourself as a person first, I think makes for a much better experience for everybody.
And I think when you start out, you're so worried about your display and what's going to be there. You don't think about, do I have enough water? Do I have snacks? Do I, it's.
Yeah, you sacrifice yourself.
Yep.
And then that makes for a miserable experience, and then you may not want to do it again. And then you just paid all that money for your tent and your tables. And
too. You can borrow from somebody who has it to try it out.
Absolutely.
Go lay out, hundreds of dollars and then find out this isn't for me.
Or maybe try a couple of small indoor markets before you go buy one of those big fancy tents.
Yep.
Do you do any multi-day markets, like 2 or 3 days at the same place?
I have not. I have been asked to.
Yep.
But they would be weekend ones, and I did not want to commit to an all-day Saturday, all-day Sunday. That's just my personal preference.
For sure. I wondered where you fell on that line because I know that I kind of feel the same way about events. Like,
especially if they're like 9 to 4 on Saturday and then like noon till 6 on Sunday, it's like, that's more than I want to take on.
Yep, for sure. And I think that's the point there is knowing yourself, knowing your boundaries. You're the person running this business, so you get to make those decisions.
Yep.
And if a Wednesday, Thursday in the middle of the week is what works best for you, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
I have a friend who does photography who does a lot of weekend shows because by the time they set up,
it's worth it.
That down is so massive that it's like it's worthwhile for them to
leave it up for a couple days.
Yep.
Yeah. It depends on the artwork, right? It depends on what you're selling, for sure. That's a great point. We are getting really close to 6:30, but I see that Carly is typing, so I want to hold out for just a few more seconds here to get Carly's question in, and then we'll wrap up from there. Oh, she just said thank you, so that's wonderful.
You're welcome, Carly.
Yeah, this is great.
You can always pick my brain.
Yeah. Carly, we love comments. Thank you. For anybody watching too, please reach out to the Artisan Center if you would like to, pick Kim's brain or stop by and see her at the Wednesday Farmers Market. She's going to be there every Wednesday. So this is a great time to go kind of pick her brain, support her, and, maybe shadow a little bit to see if you want to do this. That's great. We are 6:30 on the nose. So thank you so much, Kim. This was wonderful. It flew by. And I think we got through every single question on this crazy list of mine. So
yeah, we pretty much covered it all. So
that's great. Thank you for sharing your expertise. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to do it.
Awesome. Have a great night.
Yep, you too. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.